From the News Channel 5 network, this is SportsLine.
Hey there, SportsLine on your television. Steve Lehman here with you. Glad you are here with us on this Tuesday night on News Channel 5 Plus. Going to talk a lot of football tonight. We will continue to break down the Titans' loss to the Vikings on Sunday, 25-16. We also look ahead to this weekend's game in Detroit, noon Sunday, over on News Channel 5, the mothership, if you will. We can talk some college football tonight. Not quite as big of a weekend locally. There is no battle at Bristol. Tennessee at home instead against Ohio, a team that's got a pretty decent offense, not much of a defense. So we'll see if the Vols defense can continue its good play and if the offense can maybe keep what it did in the second quarter through the end of the game on Saturday night going and really get going and build some confidence as it heads into a brutal stretch in the SEC, starting with that Florida game in 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Vanderbilt heads south to Atlanta to take on Georgia Tech. That is a difficult task. It's an ACC opponent, but it's also the style of play that they will encounter with Georgia Tech's triple option that Paul Johnson loves to run. Justin Thomas, the good quarterback, Marcus Marshall, other guys in the backfield. You'll see a whole host of Yellow Jackets run the ball on Saturday. The difficult thing is the motion and the different guys who can get a handle of the ball and trying to do too much. What Derek Mason is trying to stress to his guys this week is just do your job. Don't worry about the next guy. Don't worry about making the spectacular play. Just do your job. Fill your gap, find your man, shake a block, and tackle well. That's the key to stopping a triple option attack. The problem is it almost gets so simple that you try to do too much. And then all of a sudden you miss a gap or you miss a guy and somebody's running free for a big game. And when you only have the 20-hour rule in college football to get prepared for it, that makes life even more difficult. And that's the thing for Vanderbilt this week. And throw in the fact last week they were facing a Middle Tennessee team that's going to spread it around the field. They're going to throw it around the park, and you've got to do all of that. And now this week it is a completely different scenario against Georgia Tech. That's the challenge in front of Derek Mason and his team this week down in Atlanta. Middle Tennessee, of course, coming off the loss to Vanderbilt. They get Bowling Green, a team that has a new coaching staff. Dino Babers off to Syracuse, but still has a high-powered offense. That has potentially the makings of a shootout and a test for a Middle Tennessee team that has such high expectations for this year. But on Saturday, for all the yards and all the movement they had between the 30s in that game, they could not put points on the board. They turned the ball over. They failed in the red zone. They missed a field goal. They just could not punch it in, finish off drives, and put points on the board. And for that reason, they end up losing at Vanderbilt. So they'll try to bounce back in a tough test this week against Bowling Green. What are your thoughts on the Titans game? As we answered, and we can continue it from last night, when you watch the game from the Titans, how frustrating was it? Did it feel like you were watching last year or the year before that all over again? Or did it feel different? And the result wasn't what you wanted, but it felt like a different team. What are your biggest concerns now moving into this weekend against Detroit? 737-7767 is the number. We can also tackle your college football questions as well tonight. And we're going to talk some high school football later on in the show. Maurice Patton is going to join us. He's covered all things sports in this area for a long, long time. He's really good at the high school level. And coming up tonight at 8:45, Maurice is going to help us break down some of the big games this week, some of the special performances so far this year, and some of the teams to watch for as we move throughout the course of the high school football season. But again, we want to hear from you guys tonight. 737-7767 is the number. We begin tonight with Jay. Jay, hello.
Good evening, Steve. I just got a question. I just wondered what you thought about the Ole Miss Alabama game. I know that's a pretty hot game this weekend. I know Ole Miss has had their number the last 2 years. And also, I hope Vanderbilt could learn a little bit from that triple option. I wish they'd run that triple option a lot. And I'll hang up, listen, thanks.
Yeah, I've heard several people talk about that in the last few days heading into this game, that they wish Vanderbilt would go to the triple option offense because of some of their limitations on recruiting in the SEC against the Alabamas and the Tennessees and the Mississippis of the world, that they feel like going to that, I hate to even call it gimmicky, but to some extent it is, attack, and having sort of an advantage with a little lesser athlete. You don't have to have as big of an offensive line to play that style. You don't have to have the best athletes in the backfield to play that style. You don't have to have the best passing quarterback to play that style. I've heard some people bring that up about Vanderbilt. You got to find the right coach to do it. I don't think Derek Mason believes that's the best way to win, so he's not going to go in that way. Maybe a future coach might, would Vanderbilt ever interest a guy like Paul Johnson? Or you look at Navy, which has had so much success. Would Ken Niumatalolo want to come down and be the head coach at Vanderbilt at some point? He turned down BYU last year, so he obviously seems pretty comfortable at Navy where he's had so much success. But I think that's the only way you'd see it on West End, is if you made a coaching change with a coach who was familiar with it or believed in it and wanted to come in here and build his program doing it that way. As far as, I am totally blanking on what Jay said for the rest of that question. Jay, I may need you to call back on that one and give me the rest of it. I totally focused in on Vanderbilt and what they were trying to do. So we will move on to LD. We'll try to get either Jay's answer back or get Jay back on the line at some point here. Let's go to LD. LD, hello.
Hey, how you doing tonight, Steve?
Doing well.
Wonderful, man. Thanks. Congratulations on the program again.
Thank you.
I want to start off, we're going to go backwards. We're going to talk college football, and then I want to talk Titans. Vandy in that triple option offense, they were very successful. I finally saw Derek Mason's prolific coaching style, and he put his head forward, and those guys were able to win. I think me, you, and a whole lot of sports people can see that Vanderbilt has to grow. They have to climb the ladder slowly, but if Mason can stick his neck out, put his head forward, and let that program succeed with that triple option, I think we won't have any regrets talking about West End or Vanderbilt football. And then the Titans, I'm gonna slow my roll with those guys. I will say this: if you can do better, then do better. Steve, the Titans have to do better without stating that. They just have to do better. If you're going to lose a game like that where Mariota, your starting quarterback, decides to take any number of snaps and not move the ball, then that is a treacherous situation inside Nissan Stadium. But I still stick with my first opinion. Dick LeBeau Theater, open and close, and the Titans will be successful. That was Mariota.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there, LD, is this defense looked like a Dick LeBeau defense in week 1. They shut the Vikings offense out of the end zone the entire afternoon. If you take away those turnovers, it's a different story of the game. And you talking about them not saying it, but actually going out there and do it. If you watch the news tonight at 10 over on News Channel 5, that's essentially what Mike Mularkey is going to say in the story we do tonight. He basically says, look, our guys believed that entire game. We believed going into it. We believed even after the turnovers we were going to win. And we still believe we're going to win and be good moving forward. But we got to do it. But we got to do it. You can't just say it. You got to do it at some point. And they understand that. They understand that for all the good intentions and for all the hard work, at some point, you may be a better football team, but at some point it's about results, and this team needs results now.
And you can't cheer Mike Mularkey right now. It's too tough to cheer Mike Mularkey. After what we went through losing Wisenhunt, if you cheer Mike Mularkey, you say you sit here and you be the statue of this team. You can't do that. These players are responding. It's those 11 on the front and they're 11 on the D. Those are the guys that are going to stand up for Tennessee Titans football from here on out. Not Mike Mularkey. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think you're right, LD, and we appreciate the call. It's up to those guys. They can prepare. The coaching staff has, along with John Robinson, created a new attitude and a new mindset for the Titans. That's clear. It feels like a different team. The results Sunday, though, didn't look any different. And so that's the thing. they've got a new style of play. They've got a new belief over there in that building, and they have played well at times. They played well at times on Sunday, but this is a bottom-line business, and at some point they've got to get results, and the only guys who can do that, no matter the game plan or no matter the style, are the 46 guys that suit up on Sunday. Those guys on offense, those guys on defense, and special teams. They've got to perform if the Titans are going to turn this thing around. And on Sunday, at times, they were really good. That defense was really good for the most part on Sunday. The special teams looked good for the most part on Sunday, except for the opening kickoff of the second half. The offense had some flashes where they looked multiple. They had more wide receiver threats than we've seen in a while. You obviously have a couple guys in the backfield who can play well for you and have big days, although neither DeMarco Murray or Derrick Henry had a particularly big game in the rushing attack on Sunday. And, of course, Marcus Mariota. He set rookie records last year. He's a guy that can win you football games. But on Sunday, he lost you a football game because of that ill-advised pick six and the fumble exchange with Murray. Whoever's fault that is, it ends up on the turf, and it gets run back for a touchdown. The offense gave up 13 points on Sunday. The Titans end up losing by 9. That is the difference in the game, and you cannot do that. I don't care what level of football you're talking about. You cannot turn the ball over, and you certainly can't turn the ball over in the catastrophic way that leads directly to points, and that's what the Titans did Sunday. So it's no surprise they lost. The good news is some of these things are pretty easy fixes. Hold on to the football. Don't throw ill-advised passes. Clean up the exchanges and the handoffs and those sort of things. You hold on to the football, you win the turnover battle, or even come even in the turnover battle, you start winning games. So that's at least a good thing as they go back and look at the film and point things out is, hey, guys, we're close. We played a good football game against a good football team that was in the playoffs last year. We just didn't get it done because of some of these mistakes. Now it's time to clean it up. All right, Jay, you're going to save me here. Thank you. I appreciate that. I talked Vanderbilt and completely forgot the real reason you called in.
No, that's all right, man. I do it all the time. I was going to ask you about the Ole Miss, Alabama.
That's right. Thank you.
Big SEC game this weekend. I just wondered what your thoughts were.
It is, and it's a fascinating weekend, Jay, is for the first time in a long time, you have all 3 of the top 3 teams in the Associated Press poll playing ranked teams in the month of December. Alabama, Ole Miss, you got a good ranked game there. Florida State at Louisville, great matchup there in the ACC early in the season. And then you got Ohio State, who's number 3 this week in the AP poll, on the road at Oklahoma. All these intersectional games, a couple of them are conference games, but you've got these early season showdowns with the teams at the top of the AP poll, which you think will probably shake up the poll significantly after this week. I think they're all great matchups when you think about it. Ole Miss has had Alabama's number. For that reason, I think the Crimson Tide will be ready to play. They've lost the last couple of seasons to Hugh Freeze and his squad. I expect they'll be ready to go. I expect Lane Kiffin to have a game plan offensively ready for Ole Miss and them to have more rhythm. If you remember back last year, that was really kind of Alabama's first test on the schedule. Some people might say that again for this year's team. But they just did not put together a very good offensive game plan. They were bouncing around between quarterbacks. You know, Cooper Bateman came in and saw some time for Alabama in that game last year, and they struggled to find a real rhythm. Josh Coker hadn't totally established himself as the guy at that point. Is Jalen Hurts the guy for Alabama now? Is he officially the guy that they believe in 100%? He's in a tough spot this weekend in that game, first SEC game. But I think they'll be ready. I think that'll be a fascinating game. But I think Alabama's the better team. And I think if they're ready to play and they get any type of quarterback play, I think they're going to go in there and win. Ole Miss is fascinating because they are a talented team. Chad Kelly is probably the best quarterback in the SEC. But he also will hurt you. That Florida State game on Labor Day night, he threw some balls away that really hurt Ole Miss in that game. He's got to be almost perfect if Ole Miss is going to beat Alabama again. Last year was kind of the perfect storm in Tuscaloosa. This year, it's back on the Grove, but Ole Miss has got to play its absolute best to have a shot. I expect they'll be ready. I expect it to be a good atmosphere, and we will see what happens. I think the other games are equally as fascinating. Florida State, Louisville, Oklahoma, Ohio State. We'll talk about those games, get into some more Titans talk, and more. More of your phone calls as well. Lines are wide open right now. 737-7767 is the number. Stay tuned. More SportsLine underway after this.